It's unjust. Anger for the family that's losing someone. And that anger has to be addressed. And we have to address it. How? Unless you forgive your brother from your heart. We have to pray for forgiveness for the person who committed the murder. Pray for forgiveness for the family of the murdered victim. Pray for forgiveness for the person themselves. Those are things that hold us back, hold the family back. They hold the family back. Some you don't know. Some may have happened way back. Some, in many cases, people do know. They find out about it and they discover that there's something there. Just recently, I was in Mexico and this gal was getting married and she called off the marriage. And she said, I'm scared to get married. I'm just scared to get married. And so she said, but I want to get married. And I said to her, what about your grandmothers? And she said, my grandmothers, you know, she said, one of them was a matchmaking thing. She didn't want to get married to this person, and they forced her to get married because it was a good financial setup. And there it is. There's sort of a feeling or an atmosphere in which marriage is not good. Marriage is not good for you, stuff like that. And that's passed on. That's passed on in so many different ways. So we need to look, and again, we're not blaming anyone. You're not going out and I'm blaming this person or blaming that person. You're not doing that. Okay? What you're saying is, this is a condition that exists in my family. I can see it, you can see it, you can look back and see it back there, or you can look down here into the future. You have children, you may have grandchildren, that you can see some of the same patterns emerging. As one kid said to me, he says, you know, there's no addictions, and, you know, my father was alcoholic, but I'm not addicted. And so the kid said, then why are you in jail? Well, for drug abuse. So it has different expressions as we come down the line. Vows made, you know, vows made that are destructive. I will never marry anyone like my father. Next time I'll marry for money. So vows that you make. Martin Luther made such a vow, if you get me out of the storm, I will become a priest. And he did, and you can see what happened in his lifetime. So again, you're looking at just a very vast thing, and how you address it, you sort of look at your culture, the culture in which I was born and raised. We were raised with a hatred of the British. So, and I don't know why they're putting the Olympic Games in London this year. So I disagree with that very much. But it's there in the culture. And in the culture, then, you know, you get back down, like sometimes one of the miracles of modern life is, you know, an Irish person married to an Italian person. I don't know how that does, but it does. So to look at the culture in which you were raised, the culture in which you were raised. I had a couple come in to me, a Hispanic couple, and they were married a year, and she said, well, he hit me. And I said to him, he said, yeah, I did, I hit her. I said, but my dad hit my mom all the time. It's no big deal. That's what's in his background, that was in this culture. And she even made it worse and said, maybe I deserve it after all. So it's sometimes we settle for things that are wrong because they're in our culture. You know, they're back there somehow, and we've been raised with those all our lives. And it doesn't make them right, and it injures the family as the family tries to move forward. And sometimes, you know, it will express itself in physical diseases and so forth. Physical diseases and so forth. There was a study done at Harvard University some years ago, that's about 15 years ago now, and they discovered that cancer with women, especially breast cancer, that if it was spousal, it would be the left breast. Okay? And if it was the right breast, then it was family. But that was their conclusion to their study about 15 years ago. So the family stuff, we either have to heal it or it'll deal with us. And sometimes it's too late when we begin to try to deal with because it's already done damage. So your culture, then your family, specifically your family, and then you personally, because your sister, your brother could have a total different perspective. They could have seen things very, very different in that way. Because two sisters once said, my father was alcoholic, the other said, no, he wasn't. He was just happy all the time. So that's in the same family. And you're looking at people who sort of make vows, different things of that sort, that are private vows. There is no such thing as a private vow. The vow is always public. And those vows have to be broken as well. The occult in families. The occult, the word itself stands for something hidden. Something hidden, having to do especially with, with astrology. My sister used to read the astrological charts every day, and I said to her then, why are you reading them? And she said, I don't believe in them. I don't believe in them at all. I said, but why do you read them? She said, I want to see if I'm going to have a good day. Ouija boards. And sometimes people go through it, it doesn't affect them, it affects other people. Some go through it and it affects them deeply. I know of a kid, he graduated, very brilliant kid, and he went from Ouija boards to seances. It was a big secret in the school because they would be conducted at his house. All the kids would go over. And he graduated and went to South America and died at the age of 22 in a prison. Again, the occult, will claim you. People get into that, get into it in a big way. Ouija boards, astrological charts, little charms that you have. This lady, this is not to scare you, but she had this, Italian horn, and she was going through all sorts of problems, and eventually they prayed with her, and they told her that she needed to get rid of the horn. So she's gone over the Vincent Thomas Bridge in San Pedro, and she caught it and threw it into the sea. And never had a problem with it, except her husband. He said, why'd you bring it home? We could melt it down. You know how much that cost? So again, when we get attached to things of that sort, crystals, all of those things, anything other than the Lord. There's only two powers, the power for good and the power for evil. And if you're dabbling in that, you're into the power for evil. All sorts of things of that sort. Palm readers, things of that sort. Yoga. Yeah. People will say, no, I just do it for exercise. Did you know that every position in yoga is a god? It's a god, and you're worshiping the god when you go into that position. You wonder, you say, well, it's really good, I lose weight, I feel good about myself, and all of that. But how long? I had a brother-in-law who was into it for 6 months. He said it was the best thing in my life. Until I came home from work one day, and I thought my head was going to split open. He said he spent 6 more months trying to get rid of the mantra. He said, I was going from bad to worse. He said, I thought it was a good life, but it really was controlling me in many, many ways. So you're looking at a vast, I've just given you a few examples, a few things that are patterns, that could be patterns, but there could be a lot more. And when people die, there's a time for everything under heaven. And there's a time to release. You have to release that person. Let them go into the fullness of God's love. Release them into the fullness of God's love. Don't hold on to them. I love them so much. I miss them so much. You do. But Jesus Christ loves them more. He gave his life for them. So you need, if you want them to be happy, let them go in. You need to pray that prayer of release. I release them into the fullness of God's love. The same with children who are aborted. Give them a name, Francis, Juan, whatever the case may be. I release them now. I couldn't mother them then, I couldn't father them then, so I release them now into the fullness of your love. You have to let go and release them into the fullness of God's love. In every family, they're not the same. They're not the same. Different people in different families, will have different patterns. And people, once you say the Healing of the Family Tree Mass, there is a difference. There is a difference. Things do happen. Things do happen. And sometimes, it becomes worse before it becomes better. Because you're removing something that has been there. You're not removing it, but the Lord is. Something that's been there for years and years and years, in the family. For instance, in our family, it's over 50, 60 years now that one side hasn't spoken to the other. It's been healed, but it's only a gradual healing that we're having. And it's the third generation that are now healing the family. It's because of the masses that were said for that. So, again, to realize if you were adopted, it depends when you were adopted. If you were adopted as a child of 6 weeks or 6 months, then it's the adopted family, the adoptive family. If it's after that, you have two families. You have the parental, the one who received and gave birth to the child, and then you have the adoptive family as well. So it's something relatively new, but there is power in it. There is power in it, and the power really to change, to begin to heal families, and predominant diseases. Predominant diseases. If there are diseases like cancer, as you've had 3 or 4 deaths in the past 10 years, then there's something that is being sort of handed on, an acceptance of cancer, an inevitability of cancer, and that needs to be broken as well. The family tree is, and it's the Mass, it's the power of the Mass that changes things, changes everything. So to look at it in that way. And then once the family tree Mass has been said, the conclusion to that would be to make Jesus Christ the Lord and Savior of your home. So one follows on the other. So many times the reason why the enthronement is not effective is that we haven't sort of taken care of the family history, except for the family history. And we need to bind things, to break things, and to cast them forth from us. Bind, break, and close the door. In other words, it could be an anger that's back in your family. Someone was murdered, that anger is still there. That has to be bound, broken by Jesus Christ, and taken away from the family. So it's just, there's a lot more as I go into the family tree. There's a lot, much more that I'm discovering, especially with spiritual warfare, with the occult, with vows and things of that sort. So we will say the Mass tonight for the healing of the family tree. And we have brochures. Would you give them out? Okay. We're going to give you out some brochures. And there's a genogram at the back of it. Okay? And you will have a few minutes, maybe about 10 minutes, to fill it out. Okay? And the brochure, we usually sell them for $3, but we're giving them free of charge to them. But we're giving them free of charge so that you have something to confer with, or refer to if you're explaining it to someone else. So what you need to put down, and when you look at the genogram in the back, look at people in the family, your uncle, put down his name, your aunt, put down her name, your cousin, put down different names. This is just a small genogram. You need to do much more than that. And put something after her name. Like I had one uncle who was, lived most of his life away from Ireland, but he never left it. He was always in love with the country, but always loved to come home and get comfort. And that was one of the big things in his life. And so, stuff like that, things you can remember. You're not looking for sins. Sins are the effects, but you're looking for situations where you say, this person had money, and this person didn't, stuff like that. So you look at it. Again, it's sort of a summary of what I've given to you. There's a lot more. Touching the tip of the iceberg, you don't know what we've done back in your, how far back can you go? Your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents. Beyond that, some people can. And again, if you get serious about what happens after this Mass is said, when you begin to see that things are changing, then you can do greater research. Ask your mother if she's alive. Ask your sisters. Things that they've heard in the family down through the years. So to be able to get a handle on it, bring it to the Mass, we say the Mass.